was actually quite interesting because my wife and I were out on a river cruise in Europe. And as you're going out for drinks and dinner with folks, we sat down and we started talking to this one gentleman, where are you from? Well, I'm from the U.S. Well, where in the U.S.? From Virginia. And we sort of, drilled down to, hey, we're both in the Leesburg area. And, I asked him a little bit more, and he turned out to be one of the prior Morven Park trustees. And we started talking, and I'm not quite even sure how we got onto the subject of bees, but it's one of my hobbies, so I'm sure I must have threw that out. And he said, we have 1,000 acres at the park. It might be interesting. So we started talking about that, and that's sort of the evolution on how the hives came about. They started off with 3 hives. We now have 4 very strong hives and one that's hopefully will make up through winter.
Okay. All right. So 3 hives. Yes. Everybody that follows us on Facebook, we have lovingly called all of your updates the game of hives, because there's always something that's happening. Bees jockeying for position within the hives. And
it is drama.
Yes. High drama.
And speaking of drama, so when we started off this year, I put in 5 purebred Russian queens. They were artificially inseminated, and they're immune to certain parasites and pesticides, and they're just a good genetic stock. Well, no matter how hard the beekeeper tries, the bees always know more than the beekeeper. And I now have 2 purebred Russian queens. We have a Carniolan queen, which comes from the Eastern Europe area. And then we have a Morven Park hybrid Russian queen. They decided to make their own. So we'll have 3 different types of queens going into. Take a beekeeper's course to learn the basics. I would not buy anything beekeeping related at that point. Take the course, look at the equipment that they have, and just sort of file that away. I would then shadow someone for a year or so, get a mentor, find out what he or she does that works, what doesn't work. And again, there are very few absolutes in beekeeping. So, what particularly works for me or works for another beekeeper may not work for the next beekeeper. There's just so many variables. So I would highly recommend that someone just shadow another individual for a time until you feel comfortable. And at that point, I would talk to that mentor and say, what do you think I need before you go out and buy anything? Because a lot of beekeepers will jump right into this and they'll buy stuff, their hives die, they get all mad, and they just leave the passion. So before you buy something, shadow an individual for a while.
Okay.
These are putting down honey, or the basics for honey, all season long, from spring through summer and then part of autumn. There's only 5 hives, so it's not a honey production facility. Most of the honey that they do produce, I do leave for the bees, so they have winter stores. Each hive has to have between 60 and 100 pounds of honey for them to be able to, get through the winter because the honey provides them the ability to stay warm. That's their carbohydrates, and they vibrate their muscles to stay warm, which requires a lot of energy. Harvest time, should they make a surplus, will probably be sometime in late August. But again, there's usually not a lot of surplus honey since I do leave it for the bees.